Welcome to PreZence with Cindy Urrutia, Ph.D., the go-to podcast to listen, learn, grow, and create greater levels of presence in your professional and personal life. I'm your host, Cindy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of PreZence. Today, we are joined by somebody I consider to be a very beautiful soul and amazing human, Eyal Raviv. Welcome.
Thank you, Cindy. Wonderful to be with you.
Thank you. Eyal, I've had the honor and pleasure of knowing you, I want to say give or take about 10 years. I happen to know you in a certain capacity, but our listeners don't. Can you please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, so that we can get to know you?
Sure, absolutely. Wonderful to be with you. And like you said, we know each other for give or take a decade. We met in California in person about a decade ago. I was running a nonprofit organization called Me Peace, and we put on an event in California, in San Francisco, that dear friends, dear peacemakers, Len and Libby Free, leaders in California, bringing together Israelis and Palestinians, but also people from all sorts of conflicts and really leaders in conflict resolution. And I appreciated you driving up hundreds of miles to be there. It was an unforgettable evening. A little about me, I'm an American living in Israel, here in the Middle East, with a dream of Middle East peace.
One of the things that was most memorable for me going to San Francisco, meeting with you, with your former mentors, with an amazing group of Israelis, Palestinians, and other, was how we related to one another as human beings. There was a genuine, heartfelt interest in the human condition in terms of seeing our shared humanity and for conflict resolutions. I think the whole idea of a dream of Middle East peace sometimes gets brushed over in the sense that we focus so much on what is wrong. Oftentimes we focus so much on conflict, on pointing fingers and basically demonizing one another, when in fact, there are challenges, there are very important human issues that need to be addressed, that need to be resolved. But if we're pointing fingers all the time, how can we have a dream? How can we fulfill the dream of peace?
Thank you. And I think you're right. There's much focus on what is wrong. On conflict itself, there is pointing fingers and demonizing. We see that here in the Middle East, but we see that elsewhere too. And I have to say, as an American, I think I came over to the Middle East with some optimism that we could try something different, call it American optimism. And we try to stay positive and focus on what's possible.
Within this idea of focusing what is possible, you do have a really strong and solid history of coalition, community, and grassroots peacemaking and building. Within this optimistic framework, what is it that has sustained you within this type of peacemaking? What keeps you going when it's hard to keep on going?
People like you, Cindy.
Thank you.
It's really true. Sometimes peace really feels far. Sometimes we read the news, we watch the news, and it really seems like the world is in disarray. But then you meet someone that actually is hopeful and that rekindles your own hope. I was privileged to get into peacemaking and the peace building sphere here in Israel at the time that social networks were coming into their Facebook was coming into its own as a network connecting people. And there I really started experiencing other people who believe peace is possible. And frankly, that sustains me. That's what keeps me hopeful.
Thank you. I love that. You said something really quite poignant that I'd like to follow up in social networks. Again, everything is outlook. Sometimes we look at the Middle East and we have certain preconceived notions of negativity versus the optimism. And the same could be said about social networks. Sometimes we look at them as taking away our humanity, making us drones to social media. There's certainly some truth to that. But there's also this ability to connect with people. Can you speak to how you were able to use social networks to meet people, to connect with people?
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier that I came to Israel from the States. I actually came in 2004. I looked around here to connect on the ground with people. Really was hard to find people that felt similarly that peace is possible. These were and still are challenging times around the Middle East. And what I wanted to do more than anything was meet like minded people, people with optimism. And what I decided to do is actually create a social network myself, create a network where people like me could meet and connect. That's what I did. It was called Me Peace. Me Peace, short for Middle East Peace, but also the combination of the words me and peace. The idea is Middle East peace starts with me, starts with each of us. And what it became is a network that really connects thousands of peacemakers, people who believe peace is possible. I just did my thing and gave this a chance. And frankly, the people came, and it's inspiring to see people connect.
It gives us hope, and it also proves that there's more people interested in seeing our shared humanity and peace than sometimes the media leads us to believe. In your
Absolutely.
words.
The media, like we said, can be a downer. But when you connect with people and realize you have shared interests, this can be people you know, but it's even more powerful sometimes with people you don't know. Connecting with the other. Right now, technology and social networks makes it possible to connect. We believe in leveraging that to enable peacemakers to connect.
That's beautiful. I'd like to circle back to this idea of me peace. I really liked how you created this juxtaposition of Middle East peace, but also me peace starting within me. It's a very powerful concept that is rather simple, and yet we sometimes overcomplicate it in terms of this idea of peace starts within me. As I say that, I also want to share an old adage that everybody has heard. It's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. The first time I met you, I don't remember everything you said. I do remember many things, but not everything you said. But I do remember how you made me feel. There was a sense of peace that was radiating from your beingness, from your essence, for a certain sense of Zen that's an attractor. And when I mean an attractor, I mean you're pulling in other people interested in peace because you are the peace. I really wanted to share that with you and with the world that yes, it does start with what we are. I
Mhm.
certainly felt that in your presence and also being around your wife, your children, and some of the other people that I met, how you have found ways to be peaceful yourself, be that peace.
Absolutely. And first, let me just say thank you. We're friends for a long time, but it's quite moving to hear a friend remembers the first time we met and mention it so powerfully. So thank you. I have to say, I'm still on the lookout for ways to become more peaceful. We agree it starts from within each of us. I think there is a kernel of peace. I'm a father now of two children. My daughter is 11, our son is 7. They are so hopeful. They are wonderfully optimistic, as all children are. And then at some point, life takes over. We face the complications and challenges of life, and we find our way. I'm still finding my way, but I think with this knowledge that you and I, we agree on this, we're hopeful. We believe that peace is possible. We believe that people are capable. We believe if we do things together, we can accomplish more. We believe it's worth giving it a chance. And I think many of your listeners would connect with these ideas. This would resonate. Finding like-minded people to work with is actually a very hopeful activity. I think that's what's sustained. And I will add, you've mentioned my wife and the kids. I think having a supportive family is key. I'm grateful for that too.
If I'm understanding you correctly, peace is not just a thing in and of itself, but it's a whole infrastructure of beingness, of connectedness, of interacting with people and how you show up with yourself and for others. Did I understand you correctly?
You got it.
I love it because I do agree with you as well that it's a much bigger picture. It is an infrastructure, but when we pull back the layers, it's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Having said that, what has been some of your challenges along the way as a peacemaker, as a father with amazing, optimistic children that reinvigorate you every day? What are some of those challenges and how have you navigated them to still be you?
Well, you have the practical challenges we all face. To develop an organization, you want to make sure it's self-sustaining. You want to make sure it's sustainable. So there's the financial challenges of working in the nonprofit world. You got to make sure not only the organization can survive, but you yourself can provide for family. So there's the organizational, the practical, the financial, but frankly, there's I would call it the holistic challenges. We spoke about the inner peace, the peace within. It's making sure that you're committed, making sure that that commitment is sustainable. There are a lot of other opportunities in other fields that are interesting, but making sure that you're passionate and continue to be passionate about peace, staying committed. And if I can be specific about one other perhaps challenge, perhaps opportunity, it's, you see, in peace, we're reaching out to the other. We cannot make peace just with ourselves. The idea is to form a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a camaraderie, to resolve conflict. I think finding ways to connect with the other is a challenge, and it's a challenge worth accepting and succeeding at. What I'm doing, for example, knowing that I'm committed to Arab-Jewish peace between Israelis and Palestinians, I'm quite comfortable in English and Hebrew, but I'm studying Arabic now to connect with the other, in their language. So there's the practical, there's the physical challenges, then there's the metaphysical challenges, and I'm trying to stay committed.
If I recall correctly, weren't you also making sure your children are fluent in 3 languages?
Right, we are at it. And the way we're doing that is we send them to a unique school where children study in Arabic and in Hebrew. This is unique because most of the state of Israel teaches in one language. But here, our kids are learning both languages. We're very grateful for that.
That helps blur the lines a little bit between the other, because if you could communicate in the same language, regardless of status, it does create a certain connection. You're not only doing it for yourself, but you're also thinking generationally and how you could also impact the next generation with how you choose to actively engage your optimistic children. So that's
Absolutely. And I would just add that the next generation actually impacts my commitment as well. I'm inspired by my children to study Arabic and to keep at it.
Lovely. I would like to ask you another question. Is there any advice you can share with our guests in terms of how to be a more impactful presence in our personal and professional lives?
Well, I think there are wise people listening to you. I can share what I try to do and what worked for me. That is, stick with what works. I know for myself, and we touched on this before, seeking inner peace, seeking to better myself, to make myself more sustainable and more alive. Simple things like exercise and trying to stay grateful for what I have and for what we have, trying to stay optimistic. I think seeing the value of inner peace is valuable to me, to my commitments professionally.
Thank you. When we have this sense of walking the path of peace, and walking the path of peace doesn't mean that everything's always peaceful, but you're choosing to be on that path.
Sure.
And when we are choosing this path, I think that by default, we are able to have a bit of what I call human centric outlook, where we're placing the human at the center of our lives, our own personal humanity, as well as that of the other. Because when we find ways to be peaceful, we recognize it in others, others recognize us. It creates this full circle that is impactful.
Sure.
Final question.
Sure.
Any advice you can give to rising leaders who are interested in peacemaking?
Sure. Stay at it is what I would counsel. And we mentioned mentors earlier. We met at a mentor of mine in San Francisco. I think finding a mentor, connecting, and even articulating the need and want of a mentor, I think is significant. It worked for me. I think it works for others. And I think every young person who wants to accomplish something can benefit from the counsel of people who might have walked that path before.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Sure.
much. Very
Thank
grateful for your presence here today, for having shared a little bit about yourself with our listeners and providing some practical advice.
Sure, Cindy. And thank you for your presence. It's powerful. And I think words are powerful. And you've chosen a powerful title for your podcast. Thank you.
May you have a beautiful day, Eyal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on PreZence. For more information on how you can create greater levels of impactful presence in your professional and personal life, visit www.cindyurrutia.com and follow me on social media. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Feel free to post a comment and we'll read it on the show.